changes spanning generations, or a shift in the wind, a body dormant underground. His world is right.
Welcome to Onward Live, a live stream focused on encouraging you to create a life you love living now. Let's go beyond success to significance. Being clear on our why is crucial. It requires doing the inner work, finding ourselves, getting to know ourselves, embracing our inner child, shedding social conditioning, and letting go of perfect. We know obstacles make us stronger. We can dream big and take action. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. I invite you to tune in every week and engage with me and my inspiring guests. Invite your friends. Let's make time for what matters most in our lives. Let's move onward together. Hello, I'm back. I took a little vacation and it was really nice. And to be honest, I'm feeling a little discombobulated. It's been like 3 weeks since I've gone live. And a couple things that I've learned. Number one, when you're 59, it's not and take the red eye, it's not the same as when you're like 20 and take the red eye. I took the red eye home on, I flew Sunday night into Monday, and I think I'm still recovering from that. So that's something that I learned. And a couple of things that I did while I was on my trip. I went and visited my former husband's brother and his father and his other brother, and with my son and my grandson and my son's wife. And it was really nice to get back together with family. It had been a while since we had gotten together since Bruce passed away, and it was a really nice get together. I enjoyed it, and it's great for Marshall to meet his William's side of the family. And then I went to the World Domination Summit last weekend. That's where I flew back from when I came back from Portland, Oregon. And it was the 10th and final World Domination Summit. And the summit is always all about living a remarkable life in a conventional world, and it's just always motivating. It's the conference that I first attended in 2014 that opened my eyes to a different way of living. I worked for the military my entire life, and I'm like, whoa, this is another way of living with coaches, and it was just so different. And I really enjoyed it, and it's what got me into podcasting, what got me into coaching. And one other bit of news that I wanted to share is that last night I got word that I'm a certified positive intelligence coach. So I'm really excited about that, because you may or may not have seen my LinkedIn posts that now I'm supporting positive intelligence as the U.S. government account director. So basically I'm responsible for reaching out to federal, local, state government and attracting, clients, trying to help people in the federal space, in the state and local space with resilience, with strengthening their mental fitness. And so I'm really excited about that. So lots going on. Tonight, I'm excited about my guest, Anne Poirier. And Anne has overcome her own eating, food, weight, and body image challenges, and she's drawn upon close to 4 decades of experience. And she wrote her book, Body Joyful, and she wants to share her personal and life-changing journey. Anne is a certified intuitive eating counselor, and she's a body confidence coach, and she's an eating disorder specialist and author. And I'm so excited to bring Anne on the show. Let me see if I remember how to do this. It's been 3 weeks here. There's Anne.
Hey, Emily, I'm so happy to be here, and congratulations on your new role. I'm excited for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I am too. It's exciting, and it's also a little challenging because I'm having to figure out what is it that I can, where do I want to spend my time? How much can I focus on what I was doing before versus how much can I focus on what I'm doing with positive intelligence? So it's
Yeah.
all good. And when I'm facing that stress, I also focus on good eating habits. So hi, Shannon. Thank you. Shannon Epps is joining us today. And she says the mic sounds a little low for me. And I don't know. Let me see if I can fix that, Shannon. I don't know. I'm not technical. What I might do? Shannon, tell me if that's sounding a little better if I'm close to the mic. I look forward to hearing from you, Shannon. I hope you're watching. And if not, we're just going to, I don't know if I want to go with this or not. And
Okay.
I might just, let's see, someone just joined. Tell me if you can hear me, whoever just joined. And Shannon, if you're still watching, tell me how my mic sounds. Maybe I just needed to get a little closer to my mic. Let's just wait a second. If not, I might a little. It still sounds low. All right, let me try something. And I can always edit this out of the regular podcast, Dan. I don't know. But let me. Okay. Now tell me how that sounds. Does it sound a little better? I'm sorry about this, Anne.
That's okay.
We will get it going. She can't hear anything about the mic. Wait a second. And we even tested it out beforehand. Oh, wait.
Much better.
She said much better. Okay, because I know I had to change something. Okay, we're just going to go with this this sound. So one of the things that I've noticed, and when I'm traveling, is how challenging it is to eat right. And so maybe we can talk about that a little bit. And then also the image of my body when I get out of my workout routine, all of a sudden I feel fat and nothing has really changed. So those are a couple questions that I had for you. But first, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your story?
Sure. I am getting a little echo. So I'm hearing myself after I talk.
Try taking your headphones off.
Okay. Let's see if that's better.
No. Unplug your headphones.
Yeah.
That sounded. I don't hear an echo now.
Let's see. Yeah, still on my end.
All right. Well, put your headphones on, and we'll have to deal with just a little bit
I'll deal with it.
Lag. Take a deep breath. That's what I coach in is mental fitness. When things go wrong like this or kind of are challenging, take a deep breath. It's all okay, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And I'm sweating. But tell us a little bit about you and why you started, wrote your book and started to become a coach in this area.
Well, it's really a long story because it all started when I was a lot younger, right? And it was about my own body image and feeling not good enough in my own body. And with that, really having a hard time. I'm wondering if I can do it this way. Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah, because that's better. So just being a larger body. No. Oh, so here we go. Let's try. Let me try one other. One other thing.
I just don't know what happened with my mic.
Let me see. The same.
Whoever's still watching, I appreciate
Shannon.
you guys.
I'm wondering if this works. This might work better. It's not in my ear. It's still there. It's not in my ear. Is that, can you hear me?
I can hear a little echo.
Okay.
Just unplug them totally and use your, are they unplugged?
No.
Okay.
Hello. I'm here.
All right. We're doing it this way.
Doing it anyway.
Thank you, Shannon, for sticking with us. Okay. I think we're ready.
Okay. So my own body image just started out not on a great road, right? And it's interesting when things like this happen, all of a sudden you start to feel smaller, right? And your body, and my body starts to sweat, and then I start to not feel good in myself.
Like what just happened?
Yeah.
Exactly. I do too. And so then that might make you, for me, it might make me want to go grab something to eat, or, you just feel like the whole attention of the world is on you. And so it's a matter of just like, really, it's okay. Well, in the big scheme of things, when you're at the end of your life, you're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, that interview, the mic didn't work. No, we're human.
It is what it is, right? So the interesting thing, though, is that's how we will turn when we don't feel comfortable, right? When anxiety starts to hit, food is a go-to for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's a go-to because it calms you down.
Yeah.
It puts you in that rest and digest. It gives you right into that parasympathetic nervous system. It works. So that's why people do it. So
or wine, or alcohol.
Yep, that'll do the same thing. Right.
So the key is to be able to accept what's happening and not resist it. I could have gotten like, oh, dang it, this whole show's ruined. We can't get the mic to work. Nothing's gonna work out. And in the past, that's probably how I would have felt. I've done a lot of work on myself to get to the point where it's like, it's okay.
It is what it is. And I think that what you said, you just go with it because it really isn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
And you're compassionate to yourself. You take some deep breaths and you don't let it hang on.
Yeah.
Forever. Because that's what it seems like.
Yeah. If it seems like forever, it's like, so, so what was going on when you were younger, and how young were you when your body image, issues started to happen?
Around 10. So wanting to be like my brother, I had an older brother, and I remember specifically the first time that my nickname kind of came from him and his friends, and wanting to play football with them because I was a little bit of a tomboy. And so I ran up into the backyard. I can remember it, and can I play? Can I play? And they all looked at me, and they must have came up with this another time. But they were calling me Annie Fanny Farmer, and they had this little song, Annie Fanny Farmer, Annie Fanny Farmer. I can still hear it. And when that happened, I know now I can look back and go, they were just boys,
right?
Teasing. And I took it though as fat Fanny. That's what I heard.
Wow.
And I think I heard that because I was described as a chubby baby. And I was a little stocky and sturdy, and that's how my parents described me, right? I mean, parents do that all the time.
Yeah.
But I had already had some programming that I'm bigger than the other kids. And I don't really fit into the same clothes. I don't like the same clothes. I'm different.
Yeah.
And that just planted a seed in my brain that my body is not right.
And when we're 10, we don't really stop and think, okay, what are my thoughts about this? What else could I think about this? We didn't even know that back then, right? We didn't even
Absolutely.
know that, we just thought our thoughts are us. We didn't really know that we could change and choose a different thought.
I know. If we knew that then, right, it would be all different. And the other piece of that is that in that same time frame, I went to the doctor for, my annual visit, and my weight was in that high scale. So the doctor told my mom, you better watch what she eats. You don't want her gaining any more weight, that kind of thing. So food started to look different at home for me and for my brother. And so those are kind of those seeds that got planted. And unfortunately, I really absorbed them and they rooted pretty quickly. And I ended up with anorexia nervosa at 12.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and this is in the 70s. And I remember like being 3 years before Karen Carpenter died of anorexia nervosa. So it really wasn't prominent at all.
So why don't you explain just a little bit about what that is?
So anorexia nervosa is this eating disorder, and it's when somebody believes that their body is not right, and they just stop eating. And when they stop eating, well, they don't stop eating completely, but they really change their eating habits, and their goal is to lose weight and to look different. And it appears different for a lot of different people, but it is a starving of the body. And that's what anorexia is. It's the starving of the body, and then the nervosa is through the mental thought process. So it's the thinking that starts to control what we do, like our behaviors.
And
Just
which is
like-
different than bulimia, which is where you eat and then maybe make yourself throw up. Right? That's that's a different kind of eating disorder. But
Correct.
so how did that show up? Like, are you at the dinner table and you just refuse to eat?
Yes. I had a writing class once, and it was so funny, strange, not funny, haha,
Mm-hmm.
that I had a writing prompt. Dinner at my house was, and what flew out of me was that night that I basically stopped eating very much. And directly after dinner, I went upstairs and I started to do sit-ups.
Mm.
I am 12 years old, 11 going on 12, and I just started to disappear in front of my parents. I did the best I could with hiding and trying to not let them notice,
Yeah.
and playing with my food. And then a lot of kind of upheaval in the home too, because they're trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Just eat. And it's not that simple. So
Yeah, just eat.
yeah. And it seems like it should be that simple. But when it's in the thoughts and it's in your beliefs, it's hardwired, and then you're not getting the nutrition to be thinking clearly.
So how did your parents handle that?
Well, they got me help
Good.
with a psychologist who was not eating disorder trained, but he was very gentle. I remember to this day, and I dropped below a weight that we had agreed on, and so I ended up in the hospital, and I was in the hospital for a little while, in a group that was not eating disorder specific, right?
Yeah.
But I got well enough to get out and to start to live my life. And my obsession with my body and food just kind of flipped to exercise and movement. And that's where I stayed for decades, in this place of, if I'm a fitness professional, then I have to worry about my weight. I have to look the part, right? Quote unquote, the part. And so that's what I went to school for, and that's what I continued to do for a really long time.
Did you get like obsessive about working out?
Yes. And I'll say that I was, you know how you can have a functioning alcoholic?
Yeah.
I was very functioning, disordered exercise, disordered eating. So I kind of flipped into binge eating. I flipped into bulimia with a purging via exercise. So a lot of my life was taken up in this space.
Wow.
So, and that's once it comes to a point where things aren't working anymore, right?
Yeah.
It was really at that point when my body started to break down, and I couldn't get a surgery that I was hoping to try to get.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I pushed pause. I stepped back and I said, "This isn't working. I'm not working." I look at back at my daughters and how I was not a good role model for them growing up. So all of that kind of came bubbling to the surface. And so I got myself in therapy again. And that's when I started to peel back the onion and really start to dive into what was going on up here in my head.
Well, if anybody, is having some issues with body image or, eating disorders or whatever, it seems like, you're the perfect person to go to because you've been through it.
Right.
And so that's what you coach in now, right?
I coach in body confidence, right? Feeling comfortable and confident in your body regardless of size, shape, or weight. So I do work with this Hayes principle. So really stepping outside of weight loss and diet. So it's it's a non-diet approach.
Mm-hmm.
Really just tuning into your body and turning inward rather than looking outward and searching outward for a way to eat.
Well, I'm quote unquote thin, and but I have, but I have noticed that, I guess I stop myself, but I do sometimes just start to eat, and like my food of choice is candy, and that's what I really like to eat. And so one of my ways of dealing with it is to not have it in the house. However, but when it's in the house, like I can just remember my daughter getting a thing of Good and Plenty's, which I love, and she would share them with me, like give me two, and I'm like, I want a handful and just shove them in my mouth. I could eat a whole box, whereas she can let the Good and Plenty's last like 2 to 3 weeks. I could never do that; they'd be gone in a day.
Right. And that's a lot of that is the restriction piece, right?
It may have started with when I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to have candy. And when I went we didn't have any junk at all, hardly. And when I went trick or treating, I would give my candy to my friends and they would bring it to school and I would eat it. So I think it probably stems from that.
Absolutely. That's where a lot of these patterns come from, and beliefs that this is a wrong food and this is a right food. So if you grow up having something restricted and you want it as a kid, you'll find it and you'll get it. It's like going over to a friend's house who has good food, and that's what we would do then.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's really starting to make peace with food and make peace with our bodies. And as we make peace, food becomes my goal for people is that food is just food. Right? It nourishes us, it fuels us, it allows us to do the things that we want to do. And it's also very pleasurable. It's celebration. I'd like to be able to go out to dinner and celebrate something.
Yeah.
Or go to a family gathering and not be worried about what I was eating, which is what happened for a lot of my years growing up.
Yeah. So who's your target audience? Is it men, women? Is it a particular age?
It's women. And because I'm a woman, and I guess I relate to that society's thin ideal is what I call it, but the ideal that a woman has and has had, which is changing and is always changing, to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And because of eating disorders increasing, especially since the pandemic, how can we create role models of our parents and our coaches and our teachers, so over 40 plus, who have grown up thinking that there's good food, there's bad food, there's these ways to eat, this is the way your body should look. If your body doesn't look this way, then you're not as worthy as somebody that's in a thinner body, So I'm trying to change the conversation and really start to find out what works for each individual and to bring a little bit of, I'm not sure what the right word is, other than not looking at someone and assuming what people assume due to body size.
Yeah, like, well, that person eats a ton, or whatever. Maybe they have an illness, that a thyroid condition or whatever. And even if that is what they do, it's their business, not ours, to be judging somebody else. I think we tend to compare ourselves with others, right?
Right.
A lot,
And that's
especially the social
that's
media.
part of it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So this show is about create a life you love living now. And it's very challenging to really love your life if you've got these body image issues, if you're not happy with your body because you see yourself in the mirror and you're like, ugh. So it just drains on you, probably even more than we realize it does. Right? We're not always aware of our thoughts and our subconscious thoughts and how it impacts everything we do.
Absolutely. And that's why I love what you're doing, because it is talking to the thoughts and allowing yourself to, I use the word step back, so, you can widen the vision a little bit. And what is that thought? Where did that come from? And noticing and becoming aware of the thoughts. So in the book, I talk about my mini-me. So I created this mini-me, and she is my inner critic, right?
Mhm.
So she had words, she had phrases, and I would create a mini-me board, and I'd start to just become aware of all the words that she was using and how angry and mean and hostile she would get.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of some of the beginning of the book is that voice talking to me, so people can really understand where my brain was during that period of time.
Well, and I think it behooves all of us to really pay attention to those thoughts, because a lot of times we're not really consciously aware of them. We're so used to them that we don't really even notice it. And once you start noticing, it's like, oh my gosh, no wonder this is the way what my mind is saying. And it's kind of interesting. This is how I am talking to myself. Well, who is I and who is myself? You're actually like we're able to observe our mind. And we are not our mind. We can, we don't have to. One of my past guests said, we just tend to accept these thoughts that the mind produces, rubber stamp them, and say, well, it must be true. Wait a second. We have the ability to question that.
Yes. And that is the beauty of all of this, is that we can, once we can become aware of them, right? That's our first step.
Yeah.
Becoming aware. And then I call it ABC, right? So there's this awareness. We can take a deep breath. And at that point, we can choose to change it, show compassion for ourselves, be curious about it. Like there's all kinds of C's.
Right.
But that's where it starts, is the awareness. Because if we're not aware.
Right.
So, and I think that that's how this mini-me, by pulling it kind of outside of me, made it less me, so I could see it in a different light.
Yeah.
And then I created a match me who needed to get some language and needed some training. He'd been sitting on the couch doing nothing. And the other training. Right?
So that's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about your book. It's called The Body Joyful, My Journey from Self-Loathing to Self-Acceptance.
Yes, and that is what the story is all about. How did I find myself in self-loathing for so long? And how that impacted my decisions and my choices, right? We know how our thoughts create emotion. So we
Yeah.
have an emotion, and then because of that emotion, how we feel, we behave a certain way,
Right.
and then it ends up on our outcomes or our choices and our behaviors and our beliefs.
So if we're not happy with our lives, if we're not living a life we love living now, instead of pointing to all these outside circumstances, and one of my coaches said, when we point a finger, we have three pointing back. Instead of saying, well, if my job was different, or if my boss wasn't so mean, or if this wasn't going on, then I could, pay attention to my weight. It's all that stuff causing it. That's a key to stop and get curious and to look at ourselves. Because when we change, then our outside world changes. You can't change any of that, what I just talked about.
Right. What can you control?
Yeah.
And what can't you control?
Right.
And that, I think about, Brene Brown will talk about when we blame, it's usually because we're in pain somehow.
Yeah.
So there's something going on. How can we be curious and compassionate with that versus turning to that inner critic and beating ourselves up over and over and over again?
I think sometimes it takes working with a coach, though, because if you want to accelerate your progress on that, I think it takes working with a coach, because you've lived with yourself for so long and your mind for so long. Sometimes it's hard to discern what's, what it's really telling you, and to even think that there could be another way of looking at something. A coach won't tell you how to look at it, but a coach will ask some empowering questions that will shape your perspective maybe in a different way.
Right. And that's the key, is how can we see these behaviors or these thoughts or these choices from a different perspective.
In ourselves. Because we can see them in everybody else, right?
For sure.
It's obvious. It's obvious that, what everyone else is thinking and how they're being. But us, no.
And we take on the persona of what we think other people are thinking of us anyway.
Right.
So that's always not right either.
Right. And so in what you sent me, you said a simple shift of perspective around our thoughts and beliefs leads to completely different behaviors and outcomes. Like, do you have some examples of, like, either with yourself or some of your clients, like a practical example? Because it's one thing to say that, but it's another to share a little story that someone would say, oh, I get it now.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite stories is one of my clients said to me at one point in time, and then I'll kind of backtrack to the story, but when she told me, I realized I couldn't hate myself then. That's when we knew it's not about food, right? Because she had always been tying her hands. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm never going to get this right. So it's always blaming the food and her stress and her relationship. So there was always something else that would trigger her into eating or shift her behavior. And that's what kind of caused this continuous disordered eating and disordered thinking about our body.
Yeah.
And calling ourselves names and making jokes about that. And when you start to peel back and start to do ask some of those questions about what's actually happening. What is that thought? Whose thought is that?
Right.
Is that yours?
Yeah.
Whose voice? So I'll say something like, well, hi, Dad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's that questioning of our own thoughts. And once you look in the mirror and you see something that you like, right? Or you identify something that your body did for you.
Yes.
You're not beating it up. Yes. You're seeing it differently. And just seeing it differently allows you to treat it a little differently.
Yeah. I mean, it's bathing suit season, right? So we just look at ourselves, look at pictures of ourselves and be like, don't post that, or I can't, look at me, I'm fat, or whatever. And excuse me, my body has delivered 2 children, healthy children, it's enabled me to do so many things. So when that happens, let's be grateful for what our body has enabled us to do today and yesterday, and it's an amazing body.
Yes. And that's the key right there, is to focus on those wonderful things and not keep focusing on the size of my belly or the size of my thighs. Or
Right.
can you see that? Or look at that. That's what happens. We look in the mirror, we go directly to the places we hate
Yeah.
versus taking a deep breath and saying, this body has done some amazing things.
Yeah.
And
I
having a
do
little
like it when some of the movie stars will, go on camera or go, on Instagram or wherever, showing a picture that's not touched up. I really like that because I think it helps all of us realize, their bodies aren't what is shown typically in the media,
right.
the way they look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those makeup artists are amazing.
There's airbrushing and there's photoshopping and there's all kinds of things. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on apps on the phone now too.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that is why eating disorders and disordered eating is such a bigger topic now. The National Eating Disorder Association, and I'll share that hotline with you. So if anybody is struggling,
Okay.
they have that. But they saw 100% increase in their hotline over the course of the past 2 years of the pandemic, because we're not used to seeing ourselves all day long.
No. And on camera, right? All the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So
when you're on camera with somebody, I can see myself right now. You can see yourself. We're constantly, seeing ourselves and then seeing other people and thinking, oh, she looks better than me or whatever.
Exactly. And that, I think, has damaged, I think, our next generation. So how can we change the behavior and the thoughts in the adults around them? Because that's how our children learn.
Yeah, our children learn by observing us, and when we say, "Oh," a typical thing would be going out clothes shopping with our daughter, and we say, "Oh, look at myself," or whatever. But I want to share too that, I think a lot of times people think body image and all these issues are really for people who are quote unquote overweight. My daughter has some invisible illnesses that, and I think just the way she was born, she's very thin. And I used to be, she'll gain the weight like I did, but I used to be like 5'6", 95 pounds, in sixth grade, and she was like, a few years ago in her early 20s, she was like 5'9", 114 pounds, probably 125 would have been better on her. So, but she worked at Starbucks, and people would say, "You need to eat a burger," and that really impacted her self-esteem.
Right.
And she wanted to gain weight because she saw, like this bone sticking out. Well, unfortunately, if you want to gain weight, it's not going to go to covering up this bone. It's going to go to your belly or wherever, your legs. But it was really stressful. And once we went somewhere, was with some relatives, and they were like, "Oh, this is how Anna eats. Let me see. I'll have this piece of spinach." And they didn't understand how hurtful that was to her.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. Body shaming can happen in lots of different ways. And it's how we feel about this vehicle of ours.
Yeah.
And if people say things like that, I have Judge Foodie in my head, right? So I have this judge about judging food. But then we also have food police and body police around us.
Yeah.
Who either want something like us, or they want something the opposite for us.
Yes.
So in conversation,
right,
things pop up that can really trigger people.
Yeah. So Shannon says that was great. I think that was what you shared earlier. I appreciate the transparency, and it's hard when we get down about our bodies. I'm learning to love who I am just the way I am. That's awesome, Shannon.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's a great statement. This
Yes.
is me just as I am, right? And that's a great way to start kind of a journey to, this is me. This is my vehicle and amazing things that I've gone through. And the hard things.
Right. And when we have that attitude about ourselves, you can just feel like the different energy, right? Like, I'm fat or this, or, I'm too thin, or, I'm not this or not that. That's kind of draining energy. But when we are like confident in our body and confident, in who we really are, then that helps us create a life we love living. It comes out in our relationships, and how we approach work, how we approach our personal life, how we feel when we walk into the mall. When you're feeling confident. Now, I've seen some people who are somebody might think kind of too heavy or whatever, and they're confident and they love themselves, right? You've seen it.
For sure. And you actually did it too, right? When you stand up, and you open up your chest, you do feel better.
Yeah.
Just smiling and just standing up tall shifts our energy.
Yeah.
So
do you feel like, do you coach on like mirror work, like looking at yourself in the mirror and maybe even naked and saying what you love about yourself?
Yes, and we start with fingernails, and we start with toenails, and we start with whatever we can start with. Because some of this is so deep that it just is a process, right? From this self-loathing place, which I understand because I felt there, it was there. And so we talk about body neutrality, and that's kind of a word that we're hearing a lot of now. And I call it this resting place on this continuum of body image. And a lot of times that's a great place to just rest from the chaos of our brains, of the judgment, of self-criticism, and from society's loud voice.
Yeah.
That you should do this, and you should do that, and you should live like this.
So do you, I've noticed as I've gotten older, I mean, I'm 59, my mom is 79, and sometimes you look in the mirror and you're like, who's that? Your brain is really like 19 or 18. So it's so weight is one issue, but another issue is like wrinkles, that kind of stuff as you age. Do you help people with that as well?
Absolutely. If you think about our body's journey, our body's always changing.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue to change. And I have so many clients who live in this space, kind of like what you said a little bit before. If I could just get back to looking like that, then everything would be okay. And when you transport them back to that period of time, things weren't okay with their body.
It's like we only remember, the good things or whatever. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
That's that journey.
Well, what would you say? Okay, so here's something I'm considering. I know we're on LinkedIn or wherever on live, but I don't really care. I see pictures of myself and my boobs are so big. That's how I see them. And sometimes I tonight I'm wearing one, but usually I don't even wear like a button-up shirt. I wear like a turtleneck, or I wear a shirt that is just a pullover, because I just don't feel comfortable with a big chest. So like, what do you coach people on in that area? Like, would you encourage somebody to get a breast reduction if that's better, or would you encourage them to work on their thoughts about what I just said?
That's a great question. But it depends on the person. It depends on history. It depends on quality of life. It depends on a lot of different things. And I think you have to start with the thoughts to at least see why that is. Where is that coming from?
Right.
Is that something else that's playing out versus using that as that would make everything better. Because
Yeah,
that is something external, right?
right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think as a coach, you're not going someone comes to you with that, you're not going to say, "Oh, you should go get the breast reduction or you should not do that." Because that's not for you to determine. It's for the client to determine, but you help with asking questions to maybe help the client see, well, what's really underlying that, and are you thinking that by getting a breast reduction or a gastro bypass, or whatever it is, a tummy tuck or a neck lift or a head lift, that you're all of a sudden your job's going to be better, your stress is going to go away? Because if you're thinking that's what's going to happen, it's probably not, right? You're looking for external things to change by you changing your body.
Right. And it's really trying to focus on internal.
Yeah.
What's going on inside? What's the fear
Yeah.
that's bringing that out? What's the behavior? Let's look at the emotion underneath that, and then what thoughts create that, right? It's like backtracking.
Right.
From here's the thought. This is what I want to do. How's it make you feel? Where's that come from? What does it lead you to do? All of those kind of questions, so you kind of can.
I wonder, I remember once my mom said that I was kind of frumpy. And I wonder if that's contributing to my thoughts about, if I change that, then I won't be frumpy.
Like if there's a hunch over, right?
Yeah.
You do that. There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
How do we carry ourselves in order to hide something or show something else off, and also hide something else? How do we dress that?
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I've always stood up straight and everything, but it's like, I don't know. I still might get a reduction. I don't know. We'll see. I'll let you know what I decide. Insurance won't pay for it because, some women that you just got to have one because your bra straps are digging into your shoulders and causing grooves. That's, not comfortable.
Right. And it is doing a little journaling around it too, right?
Yeah.
What do I expect to be different when this if this happens?
Yeah.
How do I see myself walking in at work, and how do I see myself showing up? And is that something that I want to be doing?
Right.
What thoughts go around that, or will I feel discombobulated a little bit?
Yeah. Or if it's like, I know that I'll find the love of my life when I get that breast reduction. That's not probably the change that is going to happen. Maybe not, but yeah.
And those are the questions you'll never know either way.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. That's true. So you're the leader of the Body Joyful Revolution. Can you talk about that a little bit? I love that. I love Body Joyful term, and then the revolution term. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a happy term around our bodies, right?
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I said, this is where I want to go. Let's see our bodies as the amazing vehicles that they are. I think about all the things that they do, and like you said, giving birth, but hugging people and writing things and communicating with our words and seeing sunrises. There's so many wonderful things that these bodies do.
Touch.
And touch. Senses. Our senses are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And without those, people without them, they get I don't want to talk for them, but they have sensory. The ones that are working get heightened.
Right.
But that's how they focus on the things that they can do. A lot of people. And that's what we try to do. Especially in that Body Joyful Revolution. Regardless of your size, shape, or weight. We welcome you. And we want to have you live a life now of joy and peace and freedom without all criticism and judgment. So
That's
that's
awesome.
really what we do there, is we just have a different conversation around all of this.
And this is on, when you say there, it's on Instagram, or is it also in like your coaching programs? Do you have a
The
group?
Body Joyful Revolution is a community, a private community on Facebook. It's free. And we are welcoming members there because the underlying mission is to reduce body shaming and bullying and weight stigma and eating disorders.
Okay, so it's
really
a free group, right?
Yeah, it's a free group. Yeah.
Okay, so can people get to that group? Because I didn't see that in what you submitted, but maybe I missed it. But can people get to that from your website?
They can get right from the website. There's a Join the Revolution.
Okay.
Up in the corner, yes. And you can
thebodyjoyful.com. And I'll find it when I publish this as a podcast. I'll find it in the Facebook group.
I'll make sure to send it to you too.
All right.
Yeah.
So are you more active there or on Instagram?
Probably there than
Okay,
Instagram,
probably
but I am migrating my way to Instagram more now. So.
I saw your page. You're going live with some short little segments about, it doesn't take long to watch and to, give you're giving us something to think about, another perspective on things.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I like enjoying doing that too. But like we have a lot of just free content. We have a roadmap and a manifesto and all kinds of things there that just help us act differently, think differently, and live differently.
Oh, that's awesome. It's similar to then what I do in my Onward Movement Facebook group, which is, all about, it started out like embracing our authentic selves and releasing the fear of judgment so we can, create a life we love living. And now I've kind of narrowed it down to just create a life you love living now. But I have a manifesto and kind of a roadmap too that people can go through on their own, or that I lead them through in the coaching program. But that's awesome.
So it's very similar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. So your Instagram is right here. It's Anne Poirier at 11. And I'll put that in the show notes. And then people can email you at annethebodyjoyful.com.
Yes.
And then your website is thebodyjoyful.com. And then your book is a little bit of a different website, right? Or can people also get to it from your website?
They can get to it right from the website.
Okay. All right.
Yes. And if any of your listeners want a free copy, they can email Anne at thebodyjoyful.com, and I'll send them a digital copy of the book. Because
okay, that's nice of you.
Yeah, well, that's it's there for to help people, right? That was my goal, was to say you're not alone, regardless of what size you are. Really, the thoughts can really take over. And it's really my kind of path out of self-loathing. And an interesting story, the publisher wanted self-loathing to self-love because it sounds good, right? But when I think about self-love, the people that I work with, that's so far away. And when I was stuck in loathing, I'll never love my body. That was my thought. Never. It's so far that self-acceptance and body acceptance is a closer point, and it's more accessible to, I believe it's more accessible to the masses.
Well, that's interesting, because I've heard different stories from people saying, I wanted a different title, but the publisher wanted this. So it sounds like you're like, I know my audience. I've been there. You haven't, maybe. And self-acceptance is going to be more relatable.
Yeah. And that's what I believe in.
Yeah.
So love we can get to self-love for sure. And
that's maybe your next book, From Self-Acceptance to Self-Love. There you go.
we did talk about that. Yeah.
Are you going to write another book?
Actually, I have. I'm working on a middle grade book, because if we can get this message to a younger audience, so that's kind of that's in the works right now.
So So a book in the works, like I've got a book in the works right here in my head that I want to have a book in the works, but it's like it's very challenging to write a book in the midst of all the other stuff going on. Like, what are some things that you do to create that space to write?
It's a habit.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a habit.
Yeah.
And to just sit down and write, whether I am just journaling or anything,
Yeah.
it's making that time.
Yeah.
And self, like, um, just stream of consciousness writing sometimes, that's what leads me down a path to something. And I actually will get away. My husband's great. I'll take a couple of days away, not focus on anything, but let me just write and meditate and walk. And that always pulls me to a place where creation just starts to happen.
I love that. I think we all need to create that space in our lives, even if you're not writing a book, but just get away and do that journaling on your body image or whatever other challenges that you're facing that you want to work on. I mean, make time for yourself.
Right.
And that's something that we don't always do, and that's something I've come a long way in doing that. And now I'm finding myself, since I've started that positive intelligence work, that now it's like I've got to really take a look at this and rebalance a little bit and figure out. And part of it is I'm going to give myself space for that and to not make any rash decisions or whatever, because part of it is, just some of the initial stuff, like getting to know who I'm working with, getting signed into their systems and all that kind of thing. So and plus I just came back on the red eye, right? So all these things going on. So being aware of, some things that might be contributing to my state of mind, and just give myself a little break. Take a break over this 4th of July weekend and breathe, and then make some decisions from my intuitive side, not just my head. Right?
Yes.
So get in touch with myself again, to really get in touch with my intuition and not just be in my head.
Yes, and I believe so highly in just taking some time and space and what's important, and our values change, and to relook at some of those things sometimes.
Right.
Especially as circumstances change, like they always.
Yeah. So it's all good.
Yeah.
And
One
then
of the
also
things
maybe
is
to notice how that's contributing to what we're eating, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Really looking at why we're eating. Are we hungry?
Yeah.
Are we bored?
Yeah.
Are we stressed?
Yeah.
Questions.
Well,
Curious.
I've learned something. I learned is like, okay, you're really hungry right now. You want that piece of candy. Cake I can pass up. Maybe a cookie, no, but candy. Would you eat broccoli? No. Well, then I'm probably not really hungry. So, I mean, and I can eat candy, but I'm just saying, if I'm overdoing it, that's one way that I kind of realize. And maybe I should drink a bunch of water first too, because we're probably maybe not hungry, but we're really thirsty.
Could be thirsty for sure. And changing your environment, just sitting outside, taking a few deep breaths and checking in with yourself. What do I need? What is my body?
Yeah, like today, I mean, I had back-to-back meetings, and then I had a meeting with somebody who was, her automatic system was texting me about the meeting. I knew about the meeting. And for some reason, I went on a walk. I completely forgot about the meeting. And I called her and I apologized and everything. And I just gave myself grace for that. In the past, I would have really beaten myself up. Like, how could you, you are a former military officer, you're on time for everything, and normally I am, but I've also switched to now I have 2 different calendars, so just like my view of my calendars changed, everything's like all discombobbled. I was on a different time coast, and now I'm on this coast, and so I just gave myself grace, and what I needed was to walk, and I was not living a life I love right at that moment. And I don't have any food to go eat because I haven't been to the grocery store. But if I did, that's maybe what I could have chosen. But just like take a breath. And then when I went on my walk, I felt so much better. And I was really tired. I didn't feel like going for a walk. I was like completely beat. I wanted to take a nap. But I knew I had this interview. I wanted to be up for it, and I felt so much better after that walk.
Yeah. And it's asking those questions for yourself. What do I need? And knowing what will make you feel better
Yeah.
at this given time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of the book, after each chapter, I have these step backs where I ask a lot of questions so you can think about it for yourself, noticing what happened through the chapter, and then kind of diving into your own story a little bit, if you choose to do it that way.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, Anne, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for your patience at the beginning. I could have said we just planned it this way to see, how we would react, but I think we handled it. We both handled it very well. We worked it out, and I'm so grateful that you were on the show today. And thank you so much for talking about becoming body joyful and how by doing that it helps create a life you love living.
Yes, agreed. And I thank you for all the work that you're doing, because you're changing lives, and that's a wonderful thing.
Thank you. I'll put you in the green room and I'll be right back. Thank you to everybody who watched the show tonight. I really appreciate you, Shannon, and I saw Liz was on. And for all of you who listen later as a podcast episode, you might hear us talking about some mic issues. I'm going to edit some of that out, so you probably wouldn't be able to tell that we had some mic issues at the very beginning. I think it was me, mostly. It was me having some issues with my mic and the sound not working that well. So I'll get that fixed for next week, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. And I hope everybody has a wonderful 4th of July weekend. I really appreciate your support. Onward Live is sponsored by Emily Harmon Coaching and Consulting. Visit my website, emilyharmon.com, to learn more about me and my coaching programs. I'd love to help you create a life you love living. Remember, every adversity is our own personal university. Sometimes the lessons are difficult, and we must learn from our experiences. Vulnerability is your superpower. You are lovable and worthy. And we discuss these topics and more because professional is personal. Thank you for joining us and engaging with me and